Hello, you guys. Welcome back to this series on the ATIH, Awakening the Illumined Heart interviews to the teachers of the workshop. My name is Gabriel. This is our channel. Please like and subscribe for more content. We'll create and bring more interviews to you for other workshops as well. But today with us is Dorothy Wallis. Dorothy, it's a pleasure and thank you for joining us.
Good to be here with you.
All right, beautiful. Where are you, Dorothy?
I am in Lafayette. Well, actually, no, I'm in Broomfield now. Broomfield, Colorado.
Oh, beautiful Colorado. Nice. How's the weather there?
Oh, it's getting towards spring. We had some series of snow. March is the snowiest month in Colorado, but it's also spring where it melts quickly and the sun's very intense.
Warming up a little bit.
It's warming up. It's a nice day.
Beautiful. And where are you actually originally from?
Originally, I'm from Illinois, which is kind of up by the Great Lakes area.
So you're a mountain girl.
Well, in Illinois, it wasn't, but here it's definitely.
It is. Okay.
Yeah, here it's definitely the mountains.
Cool. And tell us a little bit about your educational background.
Well, are you looking for my metaphysical background, my actual school education?
Both.
Both. Okay. So there's been a tandem, parallel kind of journey that I was with. So since I was young, there was always the metaphysical journey and interest in spirituality. And so that took me along a lot of different paths. I was, when I was really young, I had this direct connection that I really didn't lose with spirit. And so I think that's what the major thrust in my life was, to follow that. I mean, what else was there to do? And so it took me into my mother was Catholic, and so I learned about that. And there were parts of it that I related to, but parts of it that I didn't relate to at all. And then I was in Unity, which was a kind of another kind of church that was more open. And then I did metaphysical teachings with the Rosicrucians, which is one of the White Brotherhood schools. And that was very important for me because as a child, I again did not forget my psychic connection, and I was having many, many experiences that I didn't understand. And as a child, it was just so natural that I didn't realize that other people kind of lost it or didn't understand it or didn't have it. And then as I was a teenager, it was pretty apparent that, people would think that was strange. And so when I found the Rosicrucians, it was like, thank you. Thank you, because of course they are deeply into recognizing our psychic ability as well as metaphysical teachings and teaching about the heart as well. So that was an extremely important part of my life. And then later I was doing vision quests, and again with other people that were into the metaphysical community. And we would put on meditation workshops, including Vipassana meditation. And so then I have that workshops led me into, we have this school here in Boulder, which is Naropa Institute. And an Ecuadorian shaman came one evening, and his heart was just so open. And so then I became an apprentice for 3 years in shamanism with him, and then journeyed to Peru and went deeply into that journey with the Quechua tradition. And it was taking me, that journey itself highlighted the metaphysical teachings and the psychic abilities, because in shamanism, you're merging. And as a child, um, I would merge with the plants and the animals and communicate with them. And so the shamanistic journey was taking me deeper and deeper into being with the earth and the land and the plants and the wisdom teachings of that consciousness, which is the plant consciousness is much older than ours. And so the wisdom that they have is enormous and profound, that one thing that we have kind of lost. And so that was very important. And then I was drawn to Drunvalo's work, and I was drawn to the flower of life. And so in 2001, I took my first flower of life workshop, and then I became a teacher of the flower of life, which naturally led into the different iterations that Drunvalo had. There were Earth Sky workshops, which then it was Earth Sky Heart, and then it became Awakening the Illuminated Heart. And we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you for outlining like this. I think it's important for the audience. It's not, I spoke about it with different teachers, but it's not really clear like you mentioned it. So it's flower of life, then earth, sky, heart, and then ATIH, like awakening illuminated heart. And then later on, there was cosmic grace.
Right.
Okay.
So yes, with Drunvalo's work, all along he was doing Earth Sky, well, along with the flower of life, so he had the group of teachers teaching the flower of life, because he started that and gave it to the students and then teachers to teach, right? And he was still doing Earth Sky then, and he was progressing. So he was always learning more. Mm-hmm. And he was always incorporating what he learned into it, and then it became Awakening the Illuminated Heart. So during that time frame, Flower of Life, as you know, was a 17 breath meditation. Yeah. And then with Awakening the Illuminated Heart, moved into creating the Merkaba from the heart. And so that was a big transition for people. Originally, the Flower of Life was attracting many people through sacred geometry and kind of through the mind. And the 17 breath was a meditation that was very mechanical, but it was very profound, I have to say. It really opened people's hearts as well. But when they were doing that, it was like you needed to keep doing it. So at first, he taught that you needed to do it for a year every day in order for it to become permanent. And some people it was 2 years, some people it was less. I mean, you kind of would know if it was permanent. But then when it was taught with Awakening the Illuminated Heart, the heart way, then once you have created it from the heart, then it is permanent. So in your journey, that's what's so beautiful, is that you spontaneously created it. And that is the natural way for humans, actually, is when you have reached a certain level of development and maturity of being able to be in the heart, you will naturally create it.
Fascinating. Yeah, it was, I never shared this with anybody during the interviews, but I will introduce my story. And I just want to say for all of you here, I awakened spontaneously just by playing with the content of the Flower of Life. So that's what Dorothy was mentioning. I was sharing that with her before our interview. It is a fascinating work. And so how did it go into the ATIH? Why did he choose to create a new content? It was for it to be stable, permanent, right?
Well,
and connected to the heart.
He received this information from his angels.
Right.
And so it was, I mean, he was told that, right? He was told that creating it from the heart is permanent, because in order to create it from the heart, you have to be at that sensory feeling level in resonance and connection with spirit.
Mm.
We have to be one in the tiny space
Mm.
in order to create it.
True.
So when you create it from there, that's where you are.
Mm.
And you never have to leave that place.
Before I ask you about how you met Drunvalo and then how you went into the teacher training, can you share, because I'm sure there's a beautiful story there. Can you share with us a little bit of your experiences as a child with nature, like you mentioned before? What were you experiencing? What was your childhood experience and connection with nature?
With nature. Well, I grew up out in the country in Illinois and surrounded by a wooded forest, and also on the other side by cornfields. And my parents had a dog kennel. And so we boarded dogs and they had their own dogs. So first there's the connection with the animals and with life, because, you know, we would have dogs that every spring would have puppies
Mm.
and had cats. And, you know, so there's this connection right away with the animals. But I was always drawn as well to nature, to sitting amongst the trees and being with the plants. And I was kind of a strange kid, you know, because I would go off on my own, and there's this relationship that I have with the plants, that they talk to me. And that has always been there since I was very small.
How did you experience this communication?
I experience it as, it's like there's an inner language. So, and it's not in words, and so there, it's not by sound, it's vibration. And with this sensing that I have with them, I see the aura of the plants, and it's just a knowing connection that they call to me.
Mm.
and and through scent, my sense of smell is very heightened, and so I'm drawn to their scent and I'm drawn to their beauty. And I think beauty is one of the things that we haven't highlighted enough, and that we don't recognize enough in the world, that how beautiful this earth is, how beautiful all the creatures and the plants. And when you actually feel that, the beauty that's here and how extraordinary it is, then how can you help but love the earth and all of its creatures? How can you not love everything around you, right? The incredible sky and the sun and the warmth of the sun and the feeling of just this extraordinary experience through our senses. So I think our senses are really important. So I'm not someone who denies my senses. And in fact, I think by feeling your senses in such a strong way, you can go deeper and deeper into all the subtle vibrations. So, for instance, when I was in Mexico on one of my journeys in the Yucatan, I wanted to know how people recognized what plants were helpful and nurturing and would have curative properties. And so I was walking through the jungle and plants were calling to me. different plants were calling to me, and I would go up to them and touch them, and they tell you their properties. And then after doing this on this walk, we were invited to a wonderful shaman's home and with his land. And he was taking a group of us out onto his property. And he warned us, he said, so don't touch the plants because some of them are dangerous and poisonous and they can harm you. And I was like, that's interesting. I was just walking through a jungle touching all of these plants. And what I noticed then, he was pointing out the ones that were dangerous, and none of them called me.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And that's, I know, then how people, the plants, talked to the people to tell them their qualities and their properties. That's how people discovered it. That's how they knew, is if they were in touch and in resonance with the plants.
Right.
So for me, that was a very important part of my journey. Well, it still is. I mean, I'm a gardener and plants are really important to me.
Beautiful. And so back to the Drunvalo experience, how did you meet the man, and what the circumstances? Did you go to, and then how did you end up becoming a teacher?
Okay. So when I came back from Peru after being on this shamanic journey for 3 years with an apprentice, I was in a bookstore and with a friend of mine, and we were pulling books off the shelf for each other, and she pulled off The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. I opened the book and it was like, I have to have both of these volumes. And I took them home and I needed to do the meditation. And so I started sitting on the floor, teaching myself the meditation right away. And then inside it was like, I need to be with a group. And so I looked for a teacher and I found a teacher. And it was really interesting because that was the first time that I met an incredible group of people that, you know, I'm still in connection with many of them, that took me back, you know, lifetimes. You know, I'm sure many people have had that experience with this work. And at that time, once you took that workshop, you had to wait so many days before you could take one of Drunvalo's workshops because you had to do the meditation every day. And turns out he was coming here to Colorado. I think it was 1 month from that workshop. And so I went to that workshop. And it was an Earth Sky workshop. And that's when I met him. And along with many other incredible, wonderful people. And at that moment, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so then I followed that path to become a teacher. And at that time, there was a group of people that he had given permission to do the trainings with. And there were 2 people. And I went through that process. But also at that same time, I met Ron Laplace at that workshop, the Earth Sky workshop. And there's a long story about our meeting, which I won't go into now. But he had been hosting Drunvalo. And so through that, I partnered up with him and we were hosting Drunvalo workshops. So then I got to know him on a personal, intimate level, and which was really wonderful during those years.
Nice. It's beautiful. Okay, so why don't you share?
That was way before ATI, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're one of the few rare teachers that have done both the Flower of Life and the ATIH. You say ATI, okay. And
yeah, some of us, you know, say it that way, but
I would love to hear your personal experience of both the Merkaba and the tiny space of the heart, because you went through both.
mm-hmm.
So I would love to hear how you experienced the Merkaba, how you used it, and the transition. It's pretty obvious. We talked about it, but then how is it for you now, the tiny space of the heart, and how do you relate with your same Merkaba, unlike before?
Okay. So, yeah, it was an interesting experience for me when I first did the Merkaba. Because when I went into the tiny space of the heart, I didn't know what to expect.
Mm.
You know, I just went in there without any expectations, actually. And it was at that Earth Sky workshop that, I mean, I had done the Merkaba obviously during the class, but at the Earth Sky workshop was when, and Drunvalo was taking us in there, was when I really felt that connection with the tiny space. So in that moment, I went inside to this totally dark place. And then there were all of these stars everywhere. And it was vast and it was comfortable at the same time. It was like, this is home. This is, how do you even describe it, right? It's this indescribable place of just feeling total love and total possibility. And I think that's the vastness. It's like all of creation. And yet it feels so comfortable and so secure at the same time.
And how did that relate to the Merkaba? So what was the shift? How did you experience the Merkaba before and then after?
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, first of all, before I move on to that,
Sure.
I just want to finish like what happened when I came out of that in Drunvalo's workshop, because all of these other people, you know, he has people talking about their experiences, and people were seeing crystal caves and they were seeing all of these things where people, and you know, it was like not that for me. And at first I thought, and I think it's important for people to know because people have so many different experiences when they go in there. I thought, I didn't do it. I didn't get there. I must not have been in the tiny space. And then Drunvalo related his experience. And he said, so when I went in there, he said, first time, it was completely dark and I just saw stars. And it was like,
Ta-da!
yeah, it was like, okay. And that was important to know, right? Because again, you don't have a mental concept. You just, for me, it was a total feeling concept, feeling experience. And to get that validation was really important. So as far as people who will be listening to this, to know that you're going to have your own individual experience when you go in there.
Yeah, it's a fascinating subject. The reason why I ask you all about your personal experience is because I think there's value in sharing the sensory perceptions. A lot of teachers say there is a moment of compression, and then you go through and there's this massive expanse of the universe in front of you. Many said, I saw the stars. I felt like I was going through the needle of a very tiny space, and then the universe was in front of me and I saw stars. Many said, I was compressed within my heart and I felt the presence of a superior consciousness. Many said, I went into this space of compression. I really felt my sense of I-ness, of personality, of individuality being compressed. And at the same time, the frequency changed. this person said literally the frequency, the actual sound in his ears, and the vibratory rate of his body changed. And these are extremely valuable, in my opinion. Let's call them, you know, signs or road signs, you know, because
Pathways.
path, and because, you know, the problem in there is literally one of recognition.
Right.
You don't know where you are. It's like you are on a new road and you have no idea where the destination is and where is, you know, the next turn. And so I think the most fascinating part of the work that Drunvalo has proposed to the world is this compensation of step-by-step meditation guidance that really lead the student. I mean, like, there's no way you can get lost in the mind. You're doing the step-by-step, and if you use your senses, you're in there. And it's undeniable that multiple people experience the same thing.
Yes, it does focus you. I didn't experience any compression, but I think from that explanation, I understand why for me it wasn't that. And that was because I had already been working with the shaman and going into the heart. And so, in the feminine way of going into the heart, you just go into the heart. And in that Quechuan tradition, it's the feminine way.
Right.
And Yuelo's way, he really does come through more of a masculine way.
Much,
Even
much.
with the ATIH, it's still it's more masculine than the shamanistic way. So because of that experience, it was easy for me to just go there. And yet the great thing for me about that experience with Drunvalo is like the explanation of, yes, this is where you are, right? Because that wasn't part of the teachings that I had previously with the shaman. It was just being in the heart, right? So there was no explanation about, here you are in the sacred chamber of the heart, and here you are in the tiny space of the heart, and the differences, which is very important. You know, it's great to know this information. I don't think people have to know that, because if you truly are in that tiny space of the heart and you're living your life from that, there's, people on the planet that are actually doing that, and they don't have to have the knowledge. But the knowledge is wonderful.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah. In my personal experience, it was one of recognition. Doing, just like you said, you go in there, you have no idea where you're going until you actually compare notes with someone else.
Yeah.
Or read Drunvalo's work.
Well, we're all there together. Yes, this is wonderful. Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing this. Did you want to add anything else? I would love to hear your Merkaba experience.
Yeah. So with the Merkaba, as I said, I had first started by doing the 17 breath, which was amazing because I think, all those sensory experiences that you were talking about other people have had with doing the 17 breath meditation, it definitely gives you huge sensation when you're doing that, because each step of the way is taking you deeper and deeper somatically into your body. And so creating it from that way, you do feel that of it coming out, and that it's an incredible experience. And actually, doing that every time, I would still feel that. And then another thing happened, and this was before ATIH. So I had been doing that meditation. And one of the things that my work is, I'm a psychotherapist. And so I was with a client, and I was taking them, I take people into like hypnotherapy states, shamanistic, somatic experiences. And I was doing this with a client, and our hearts connected. And in that moment, the client and I experienced that opening from the heart of the Merkaba, because we were in this deep, tiny space of the heart resonance had taken her into that. And so it opened up in her and it opened up in me that at the same moment. And that experience was just utter, calm, still peace. Peace profound.
So the Merkaba for you is an experience of explosion, light, and peace.
Especially, creating it from the heart is just this beautiful perfection of peace. Peace profound.
All right, cool. Can you describe to us how do you use it in your daily life? What is your personal experience of the Merkaba in the tiny space of your heart for everyday activities like, I don't know, making money, taking care of your health, relationships, or basically personal direct applications of these teachings in your everyday activities?
So for everyday activities, it's the same, which is being there. Being there and allowing spirit to move through me. So it's not, we teach people the programming and how you can use it in that way, which is wonderful, which is appropriate for people to learn more about using their Merkaba. But at some point, you are allowing spirit to be the guide totally. You're allowing spirit to guide your life. Because at that point, you realize that your personality is so small in comparison to the creative force of spirit, and that you can give yourself over to that and allow that movement to come through the tiny space of your heart into your field, and allow that to guide you, to call you to wherever you need to be, to create whatever it needs to create. And it comes through that way. For me, I'm very visual, very spatially oriented. And so the pictures, the images, the creative force comes through, and the vibration. So that is the way that I feel life and I move through life. So whether it's creating harmony in nature through gardening, through relationships with clients, I allow people to connect with me. It's like I'm not somebody who markets a lot. I could do a lot of marketing, but I have a website, but I don't do a lot of marketing because I feel that people will be drawn to who they need to be drawn to. And that's the way it works. And spirit is guiding all of that for them and for me. And so I trust in it. I suppose it's a relationship now of trust.
Okay.
Allowing the divine will, allowing divine will.
So
I don't concentrate and especially on those exterior things like money, or I work with relationship. I as a psychotherapist, and I work mostly with the emotional field, because I believe that that's the new frontier basically for humanity, to understand their emotions and to be able to work with their emotions, to realize that all of our emotions are good and friendly and here to serve you. And if you connect with them, then you would understand what they're doing, and then they wouldn't be causing you disharmony. Um, and I think that's the relationship with all of life, really.
Okay. So let me see if I understand properly. The Merkaba and the tiny space of the heart as an experience was for you a tool to connect with your higher self and with higher consciousness, and then you put all your trust and you surrender to these higher guidance to support you in everyday activities, and that may happen with visions or with intuitions and so on and so forth, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That summarizes, I assume.
That's a good summary.
Beautiful.
Good job.
Thank you for that. Are there any experiences that you witnessed during the workshops that were outstanding, or something like healing, immediate remission, or disease immediate remission, or people manifesting a specific desire right after the workshop, or healing their relationships pretty quickly, or establishing new relationships, something that without mentioning names you can actually share?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I do believe that there are, when I think about the students, so many profound experiences people have had. Um, I, one of the things, as I was just saying, that I bring in an emotional content to the workshop. And so what I see from that is people opening up. And I think it's very important to not just have um, flashy spiritual experiences, but to have grounded real life experiences that people are transforming parts of themselves, opening up to their shadow aspects, and being able to be vulnerable.
Which shadow aspect you mean?
So, the shadow aspects are these parts of ourselves that we don't see about ourselves, and they have to do with parts of the ego that are usually protective. So the ego is a protective part of us. It's not something that's bad. And the shadow parts are the parts that we can't see, that are more defensive and are unrelational. So with that, they can cause harm, right, to the individual and to others. So these parts of ourselves, or the parts that we're ashamed of, or the parts that we're guilty about, these are some of the shadows that are maybe not destructive to others, but can weigh a person down and be a burden inside of them. And so when during this workshop, because it's a heart opening workshop, one of the things that often happens for people is that it can be difficult at first to go into the heart, because it's surrounded with so much protection, and the protection around it is holding pain. And that pain is from past lives as well as this life. So it can be intergenerational. It can be their past lives or their ancestors. And so just even helping people to a safe place to be able to open up, to release the pain. Because when you begin to touch it, that is what happens. And so if you're surrounded in a loving atmosphere of care and space by the group, because the group creates a container, and we create a safe container for people to be able to allow themselves to go through shame, to release it, to go through whatever pain is there, whatever things that they may have done that they feel bad about, to allow all that. And so I've seen many people, which is incredible, because once someone can go through that experience of releasing that kind of pain, then they're not afraid to do it again. They're not afraid to be vulnerable and to touch these parts of themselves and to really begin to realize that they are divine, and that every person at the very core, we are made from creation, from spirit, and we're all divine, and we're just little children here, really. We're all still just little children growing and learning, and people can come to a place of forgiveness for what they are, for who they are, to see their humanity and to have compassion for themselves, and then have compassion for others. So I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I see unfold for people. And yes, people have incredible, flashy, spiritual, experiences of seeing things or having psychic experiences. That's wonderful too. But the deep work is really going to this place inside, to who you are, and to really loving that being that was made from love itself.
Okay. And so fundamentally during the workshop, there's a lot of emotional transformation and emotional healing for a lot of individuals.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you for that. The next question is very much related to your perception. I would like to know if you have experienced a spike in personal extrasensory perception, precognition, intuition, simple knowing, telepathic knowing, all of that phenomena since you awakened or you started working with the Merkaba. And later on, if there was a spike also during the time when you went into the tiny space of the heart.
So I come from a place that I was a psychic kid, and I kind of kept that psychic ability. So it was more for me of extending it, developing it through that path that I talked about earlier. Certainly the shamanic work deepened it, and metaphysical work deepened it. And then with the Merkaba, with Drunvalo's work, well, I'll just explain again. I think with Drunvalo's work, his work really helped me understand more. So one of the things he had said in an Earth Sky workshop years ago was he was talking about the psychic kids, and he was talking about how they saw things. And so he described it as like having a screen and having these images on a screen and being able to see that way, see people's lives, see whatever they were seeing, right? And how they had gone into the Kogi have gone into dark caves in order to have these psychic experiences to open up that part of the body. And when he was telling the story about the screen, it was interesting because, as I said, I was a kind of a strange child. And so I would go into closets and I would sit in closets and meditate. And when I did that, I saw the screen, and it led me. We had this dog kennel, and it led me to communion with all of these dogs. And they would talk to me and tell me, they would show me their home, they would show me the people they lived with, and then they would tell me their name and when they were coming to stay at the kennel. And they would come, and luckily I had my mother just allowed it. She didn't think I was a freak or something. So she just, said, write it down in the book and you'll be fine. But when Drunvalo talked about the screen, it was like, there's other people that see it this way. There's other people out there. I am not alone. So that's what it did for me, because it was like, I think for so long I had felt that other people, I, I think a lot of people that come to this work feel that they're strange or different in some way and alone in it. And so when he talked about that, it was like, it gave me a piece of myself back. It helped me understand me, and that I wasn't alone, that I'm not abnormal.
Okay.
That was okay. And it was huge for me.
Have you heard of Rupert Sheldrake?
Yes.
Fascinating amount of work. Amazing, amazing guy. He's literally mapped it all out and literally put it into multiple books. I thought he's wrote one also about dogs and how they react and respond to their owners. Very fascinating work. Beautiful. So we
And
have,
so with that, you were asking more of a question since then. So I've had many experiences at, it doesn't have to be at a sacred site, it can be anywhere. But it seems like sacred sites definitely kind of bring up more of this pronounced intuitive psychic ability. Um, and if you look at the sacred geometry of these places, you can understand what's happening there energetically.
fields and heightened energies, right?
Yeah. But literally, what has happened for me is like I see auras with plants and around people, but when I'm at a sacred site, the the aura of what's around, so example, I was at this one sacred site in New Zealand, and a woman was doing a chant, and around her it was like 5 feet all the way around her, vivid green light, vivid. And when I first saw it, it was like, usually you see these auras around people, they're like this. This was like huge. And so I turned and I shut my eyes and I thought, I'm not seeing this. And I turned back and it's still there, still there. And it was just like vivid, right? So something opened up in that connection. It's a connection like when you're in a sacred space, because your tiny space, you're connected with it and your Merkaba's connected with it, and it opens up the space. And that site especially was one where it definitely was used sacred geometry, and this was a medicine wheel. And there's something very special about the energies that you attune to when you're in a place like that open it up. So another thing that I learned through metaphysical teachings and through the Rosicrucians was that one of the things about being psychic or intuitive is that you can have all of these exercises to practice, which is a good thing to do. But it's the allowance of it, because it will be there when you need it. It's not something to try to make happen. It's something that is natural. And again, it's all about allowing, and you're just allowing it to be there, and it will be there when you trust. It will just be there when you need it. But you'll also have, some amazing experiences like that where there's an opening.
I want to piggyback on that. I think there's a lot of I mean, it's in my opinion, I'm not a, maybe I have been, maybe I'm not, I don't know. I noticed though, if I pay attention to it, then it's there. Because it's not something that I do, it's something that raises a flag. It's as
Yeah.
if like like in business, you sense it when someone is lying or someone is kind of trying to force your hand or pushing you in a corner. It's in their words and the way they speak and in their energy. I don't know how else to describe it. You just feel that there's something off, right?
Right.
They're speaking very eloquently, so good, but you know that underneath it is something wrong. There's something I perceive it when I'm
Mhm.
at work. And there are many people that may have the very same experience. Maybe sometimes in my team, I ask, did you guys feel something awkward at that point? Am I the only one that felt that was something awkward? So what was it? And so these two questions always are key, fundamental. Recognition. Did you feel it? Am I the only one that felt that? And what was it? Why do you think where at that point we felt that? And that reminds me also, it's just a perfect piggyback to what you're saying. It's not something that we make happen. It's just natural. The fact that we don't pay attention to it or we discard it as woo woo or nonsense. And that has been my experience for many years, like a lot of intuition as a child. And then, you just do it and you fall, even though you knew you shouldn't have done it, or
Mhm.
you felt like you shouldn't have done it.
Right.
And so for me, it's been a process of rediscovery through the last few years where I feel something and then I pause and I ask questions. What was that? Why was I feeling that?
Mhm.
What is it related to what is happening to me right now or to the person that is talking to me? And in business, it's becoming second nature to sense when someone is off the line or there's something off a negative intention or a skewed intention. Let's just put it in with these words. But there are other events like in relationships that can be very delicate. People
Yeah.
have very, very confused intentions, or they just feel all these emotions and they get angry all of a sudden and you don't know what's going on, like where are they coming from? But thank you for sharing that, because it is really a natural state of mind. It's a natural state of human nature. It's just that we either deny it because of the belief system of our religious, whatever we are forced to believe, or it's a societal habit to just discard and say, it's nonsense. Like when you're a child and you talk to your mom about the invisible friend that you have, and they're like, there's no invisible friend, just stay with your truth friends and play with them. And then the child starts believing that and they forget about the alternative things that they were perceiving. um,
Yes. So you're right. The awareness is important. The
yeah,
recognition,
yeah,
right?
they
It's
are.
like here it is. Oh, it's here, and the awareness of it, which is why the practice of doing exercises and helping to develop that part is important as well, because it allows you to have more recognition and awareness.
Okay, I want to ask you a couple of the strange questions that go into fringe topics like Egypt. I assume that you've been there. We didn't
You
listen.
know, I haven't, but I have in past lives. I mean, I'm so drawn to Egypt. I mean, it was one of the things when I opened, well, I was in the Rosicrucians, which, I mean, there's totally Egyptian knowledge. And so when I opened Drunvalo's book, that was one of the things on the ancient secret of the flower of life, which drew me because it was like, yes, 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 all of it. But
Nice.
in this life, I haven't gone back there.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
kind of purposefully.
maybe I will have another conversation at some point when you come back from Egypt.
Yeah.
Let me ask you though about your perception of the soul and also the process of death. Do you believe that there is a tunnel? We go through the tunnel, and then at the end of the tunnel, someone is there to welcome us, and then we go to a school, we learn what we need to learn, and then we come back to Earth. Is
Mhm.
that really what happens? What is your opinion? What is your belief system? What have you experienced?
Yeah, I'll start with the experience. So you had mentioned at one point like near-death experiences that people have had. I had a near-death experience, and what happened for me was I left my body and I was with an aunt who had passed previously, and also a man that was very important in my life who had passed. That he was like a father to me, but he wasn't my father.
Mm-hmm.
And they were there with me and showed me all these pictures from my life, but they were like photographs, but they weren't photographs because there was nobody actually taking pictures of those moments. But they had all these moments and they were telling me about my life and how much they loved me and where I was right now and how I had to go back. It was a time that I had to go back. But they were showing me how much I was loved. And so that was one experience that I had. And when I came back into my body, um, it was a journey. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that whole journey back into my body, but there was a whole journey just to get back into my body. So, um, but one of the more profound experiences I had around death was with my mother. I was with her and I had my hand on her heart when she was taking her last breaths. And at one point, I just said, "It's okay, Mom. It's okay that you go. And at that moment, she took her last breath. And I felt, because my hand was on her heart, and I felt all the molecules in her body, like just the movement and the quickness of it, the speed, the energy. It was so intense and heightened. And it was started at her toes and moved all the way up her body and gathered in her heart. And it was this intense energy. And then she went out of her body. And I felt her going out of her body. And I felt her, and I felt her in total bliss. Just total bliss. It was the most amazing experience. It was the most incredible gift anybody gave me to experience that, what she went through passing over her. And before that, my dad had passed a couple years earlier, and he came to me. Um, so there's definitely a knowing that we go on, our consciousness goes on. It's an experience I had, so it's real, it's known, there's no question, I have no doubt about it. And at that other place, my mother was very much into the Buddhist religion, and so we were able to have her her body be there for 3 days before anything was done with it. And then I went to a bardo ceremony for her to help her move on. And the feeling of that was one of just an ease with this people here supporting that journey for her and allowing her then to connect. So I just feel that there's this big connection that we have with beings that have loved us forever, that are on the other side, our guides and past ancestors, etc. It's humanity, right? That are there for us. I do believe in reincarnation. Time period, I don't know how long. I think for some people it can be short and others long. So I do believe that um, there's a time period for people when they come back. I remember my last life, and so it wasn't very long before I came back from last life to this one. But I think it can differ, you know, depending on a person. I do believe that what we come here to earth for is to learn about love, that's it. That is it. We come to learn about love in all ways, in all the forms of love, because I don't believe that love is an emotion. It's not. Love is creation. Love is creation. The opposite of fear is not love, it's safety. Because the only time that you feel any fear is when you're in a body. And the body needs fear to protect itself. That's the only time you feel fear. Your consciousness doesn't feel fear. Your consciousness is love. So love is way beyond emotion, way beyond. It's creation. And so in that realm, I think there's total possibility. And we are guided by our souls as to what those soul experiences want for us. And that's part of this connection with will, the divine will, not personal will, of allowing that, because then you're allowing your soul to guide you. Because your soul is taking you on a path of learning about love. That's why we're here.
Okay. So the other question I wanted to ask you is related about the SMEs and the sun and the solar flash. Do you have any information that you would like to share about this subject?
Well, our sun obviously is the source of life and energy. That's what it is, right? And so the sun has consciousness just as the earth does. And the sun and the earth are in a beautiful marriage together. A perfect, beautiful marriage where our sun is sending beams of life and energy to the earth, because the earth is going through the transformation and we follow her. We are creatures of her. Our body is of the earth. And so our body, when we are in connection with the earth and the sun, allows this transformation of us to evolve into the consciousness of the earth as the earth evolves. And so the sun's giving rays are highlighted at this moment as other planetary bodies in our solar system. All of these energies are coming together to awaken us, to transform us, to allow us to open up to more love, to open us to knowing that our consciousness is immortal and that only our body is mortal. And with that knowledge, then fear lessens. So the transformation is really about that. And the sun is sending waves, you know, that's these waves that come in are here to awaken us. That's what I believe. And the whole solar system and beyond, you know, the galaxy that we're in. I mean, all of this, we're connected. We're not separate from any of this. We're all in unity together. And the understanding is so important for all of us, because when we understand, then we can relax. You know, I've talked about some of my personal experiences with that, of acceptance and of understanding, where, oh, yes, we can relax. And so it's not to be afraid of these energies that are coming in. It's to allow them to move through your body in a beautiful expression, right? Of re-energizing. In the Quechua tradition, what they do is a sun ceremony every morning, and they ground themselves like a tree into the earth. So they're connected with that pillar of connection with the earth and then connection with the sun. And the ceremony is actually taking the rays of the sun into the body, just like prana, taking the energy of the sun into the body every morning to energize and balance.
Okay, cool. So we've come to an hour of our time. I think it's a great opportunity for you to share your website. You want to tell us what it is?
Yes, I have two websites. One of them is The Doorway. So that's www.thedorway.com.
Okay.
And the other website is The Heartfulness Path.
Mm-hmm.
And The Heartfulness Path is my blog. And The Heartfulness Path is talks a lot about relationship and emotions, and just, you know, whatever subjects that I feel, you know, are important to write about at the time for people. The Doorway is my website for psychotherapy and for workshops. So for I do relational workshops as well as the Awakening the Illuminated Heart. Excuse me. Right now, because we've been in this pandemic for the last year, I haven't given, I haven't given, excuse me, that's interesting. This is coming up. Oh, well, I'm emotional about it because I haven't given a workshop this last year.
Not even online?
No.
Okay.
I've been thinking about doing the online. I do therapy online, and it's incredible. But to do it with a group, with the ATI, there's so many elements of that workshop, as you know, you've taken it, that are so experiential, like with people together.
Right.
That for me, it's like, I don't know, I haven't had a calling to try to recreate that. I think once people get together again, because to me, it's like the power of the workshop is the group, really. Being able to do all those experiential exercises with other people. So that's why I haven't done a workshop online. Now,
I can tell you it's very powerful. I've done one online, and even though you might not be in proximity, physical proximity with another individual, it's still very powerful.
really?
Yeah, experiences there.
And so even with all the one-on-one
Mind
experience?
you, I had taken it one-on-one. It makes a huge difference, especially with the healing day. The introduction and the healing day make a huge difference. But all the rest, you know, you are on your own anyway. It's all about the meditation and learning that technique.
Although there's some meditations you're doing with another person.
Yeah, you do with your higher self.
Oh.
So that was huge for me, because I never had a connection with my I mean, I had, but it wasn't that clear. So it made a
Well, that's good information for me. Yes.
highly recommend not stopping and just keep going. And you know, people will experience it.
Hmm.
They come, who comes is ready to receive.
Okay.
I really loved it with Viola. She was very thorough, and loved our group because we were young and engaging and asking a ton of questions. I mean,
Yeah.
we often went overboard with the questions, but she said that she really enjoyed it. And
Oh, good.
I think there's no limitations to this kind of work, honestly.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful to know.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing for me this last year has been um, with therapy, because of the pandemic, there was a real focus on that for people because people were especially in need of it. Um, and so, I have plans for doing other workshops. I'm going to try some other workshops online to see how that goes before I try to incorporate the ATIH online.
Nice.
But I have been hearing from some other people, that they've had success. So that's good.
Nice. So, are there any events planned for your upcoming trainings or other services that you offer?
Now, in the future, what I'm looking at is a workshop. It's a relational workshop, and it's cultivating healthy relationships. And that would be for individuals and couples, partners, friends. But it's a very important, because I think the main thing that people need to understand right now is how to move through their triggers in order to be relational and connect with other people, and to understand more about how to communicate. And it's a relational workshop. So that's one thing I'm planning on doing this coming year. So, and
So,
that's a good process for people before actually they do the ATIH, because it's a very opening workshop to be able to really understand what's happening
with
in
it.
themselves, like I was talking about with the shadows and emotional work.
So the doorway, and what is your thedoorway.com, and then your blog is what?
Heartfulnesspath.com.
Dot .com. Brilliant. All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in on this interview on the Awakening the Illumined Heart series. Please like and subscribe to our channel. There will be way more interviews. There will be way more teachers. Thank you very much for joining us again. This is Dorothy Wallis with us. Take care. See you soon.
Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you very much. Lovely being with you today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dorothy. Take care. Bye for now.